whispering walls. The rain lashed against the weathered stone walls of Blackwood Manor, the wind howling like a tormented beast trapped within its decaying halls. Jagged lightning split the bruised black sky, briefly illuminating the ramshackle edifice looming atop the windswept hillock. The flash outlined the manor's peaked roofs clawing at the tumultuous heavens, while in the courtyard below, solitary statues stood canted amongst neglected gardens and crumbling colonnades. I shouldn't have been there. As I clung to the rusting iron gates, eyes tracing the broken path to the manor's sagging entrance portal, everyone's dire warnings echoed through my mind. For generations, sinister stories had crawled from that lightless interior which no villager dared approach. Tales of unearthly cries emanating from the warped architecture at midnight, and frequent disappearances of those reckless few who ventured near seeking thrills or shelter from storms. But youthful arrogance burned brightly within me then, fueled by disbelief of the superstitious dread which suffused our remote village. I resolved to pierce the veil of mystery enshrouding those accursed grounds myself, as though my skeptic's rationale could somehow shield me from the unknown. As I crept beneath the creaking, iron arch onto the manor grounds, an icy tide of unreasoning dread surged through me. I staggered like a drunkard in the face of that occult miasma which seemed to leach vitality from the very air. The wind's banshee wailing faded, leaving only the frantic drumming of rain on stone to underscore my thudding heart and ragged breaths. I scrambled up the crumbling front steps onto the covered portico, seeking respite from the elements while bracing my whirling senses. This proved a fateful misstep. For as I leaned a shaking palm against the weathered oak door, an unnatural coldness reached from the blank wood to twine round my wrist ingot file whispering wall's spectral caress. I recoiled with a choked cry, but too late, the doorway gaped wide, a yawning portal into fathomless dark. From that lightless abyss, a figure drifted. It seemed humanoid, clad in wispy robes trailing mist. But hovering several inches above the floor, the intruder's lower contours faded indistinctly into vapor. As I stared, mesmerized by an impression of boundless hunger lurking deep within the hood's sunken recesses, the visitant proved its inhuman genesis by speaking into my mind. "You shouldn't be here," it whispered, voice dripping with sepulchral menace. Panic detonated through me. I turned to flee into the night's storm-lashed bosom, but spectral hands like winter's bite arrested motion. Thrashing against that merciless grip, I was drawn inexorably across the threshold into darkness tangible as velvet. The door slammed shut, enclosing me in eldritch gloaming. And so the chase began, my desperation fleeing the phantasm's icy clutches matched only by its preternatural anticipation. The specter harried me through an impossible labyrinth of dust-choked chambers and precipitous stairwells doubling back upon themselves as if warped by a mad god's design. In every mirror or polished surface, the pursuer's glowing eyes hungered from just behind my pounding footsteps. The manor's dimensions distorted further, cavernous halls and narrow attics alike slowly twisted into a charnel house grotesquely reflecting my stalker's malignance and insatiable hunger. Hand-carved mahogany furniture became jagged iron maidens awaiting my encasement. Ornate chandeliers precipitated down to pierce the worm-riddled floorboards, while once elegant portraits leered like debauched death masks externalizing the ghoul's innermost depravity. Through the maze of horror I plunged heedlessly, ears ringing with my hunted gasps and the specter's obscene imprecations projected directly into my fraying psyche. "You are mine," its vile sussurrations echoed, heart, soul, screams and sanity soon to adorn my gallery of mortal anguish. At last I fetched up against a splintered door barring my headlong flight. Behind me the phantom loomed, outlined against hell-born fires now licking up the walls, incinerating sanity's last mooring. Paralyzing hyperventilation threatened to invite the ravening specter into my defenseless being, leaving naught but a husk for it to puppet at will back into the village to sow carnage. But desperate inspiration ignited my final reserves of courage. If this vampiric aberration could project itself psychically, perhaps a psychic assault could repel its phantasmal form. With a soul-rending cry, I launched my injured body directly at those mesmeric eyes yearning to consummate our fatal hunt. To the specter's astonishment, I gripped its skeletal claws, grappling desperately with the mist-wreathed figure while unleashing every childhood nightmare buried in my subconscious. Monstrous imagery flooded forth, fueled by overwhelming terror and rage, a torrent comprising tangled forests with leprous limbs clutching from Stygian depths, charnel pits of glistening offal piles squirming with bloated, ravenous larvae, oozing subcellars where hunched cannibals crooned over slowly expiring captives. Invisible culverts seemed to empty my psyche into the hovering ghoul whose composure disintegrated beneath that torrent. Its glowing eyes flickered erratically, bony jaws clacking and distending impossibly wide as if to spew forth the vile contents I was forcing back down its gullet. Strobing blacklight chaos engulfed us both while unbearable psychic pressure throbbed against fragile barriers barely separating our conjoined minds in weird symbiosis. Abruptly the link shattered like a rupturing aneurysm. The spirit let loose an eldritch shriek and catapulted away as if flung by pent-up forces suddenly breaking free. Relief doused my overloaded senses as the monstrous weight oppressing my faculties evaporated. Exhaustion slumped me against the attic door as eldritch fires dwindled, walls no longer churning with ghastly life, portraits once more merely fading daubs embellishing crumbling plaster. Midnight's clock tolled somberly across the manor's neglected grounds. The occulted starscape reappeared through cracked timbers overhead. An unsettling emptiness pervaded the musty galleries, almost like a held breath after psychic Armageddon had scoured their dust-furred bones. Cautiously I descended the grand staircase towards the manor's brooding facade, now seemingly quiescent and mundane without its indwelling wraith to animate the lonely architecture. Yet instinct warned me, forces once unleashed reverberate long through dimensional voids, their unseen ripples spreading like plague. Though I appeared the lone survivor of tonight's ordeal, far worse likely still lay slumbering in lightless realms best left unplumbed by mortal minds and unsanctified flesh. This forsaken manse would hold forever the secrets of what had transpired here between reified nightmare and unwilling mortal. Its stones still whispered of the gaps beyond our ordered reality, patiently awaiting fresh victims to satiate the endless hunger perpetually gnawing along the boundaries of our bright-lit world behind the tattered veil. Dawn's first pale rays found me limping between the rusted gates without a backward glance. Childlike giggles chased my weary steps from the weed-choked courtyard. The outer stone walls now undulated gently in the fading gloom, while from a peaked gable something pale briefly watched my limping progress down the winding path back towards village and hearth, slowly materializing from the mist-shrouded valley below.